seems like it's a little blurry. That seems better, I think. Hi guys! Okay, if you follow me on my personal account, I guess you could call it personal account, over on the House of Wheeler, I just went over there and introduced our guest. Her name is Jess. Her daughter is Gwen. They're from Our Sweet Gwendolyn. She is a heart warrior mama. We're gonna go ahead and go live with her right now, so let's welcome her. It looks like it's waiting for you, Jess. Hi! It worked! Yay!
Let me turn this up a little bit.
Oh.
How are you?
Once it like splits the screen, it kind of like does a funny little. That's better. How are you?
Perfect. I'm good. I'm really good. I've got Gwen here. She can say hi before she goes to bed.
Yay!
Yeah.
It's only 8:30 there, huh?
Yeah, it's just like right before she goes into bed.
Oh, perfect.
Come say hi. Can you see her? Oh, there she is.
Oh,
You want to hold her?
There we go. Say hi to everybody. She's kind of tired.
Oh yeah, and she's like, Mom, why are you throwing me in the camera? It's like
she's like, I was just with Dad playing piano, and now I want to go to bed. Okay.
You were playing piano, your favorite, huh?
Say hi. Say hi, Taylor.
I'm so
Hi, everybody.
nice. Extra special guest.
Okay, I'm gonna pass her off because I can't hear Taylor very well. Hi, sweet girly. Okay, I'm back.
Hi. Okay, so a lot of these people will be your viewers, but for those who don't follow you, will you go ahead and introduce yourself? I've known you for. Have I known you since before Gwen's diagnosis or just soon after?
You know, I was thinking the same thing. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Almost.
You know what? I think it was after. I think it might have been the viral post maybe that I found you with that maybe. Or
we were in a little mom's group a little bit before that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Mom put us in there, and it was so funny because I'd like seen your screen name. We'd answered like some group questions before, and then someone tagged me in your upgraded to 47 post, and I was like,
oh, right.
That baby looks familiar, and I clicked on it, and I realized it was you, and I went over to Instagram and messaged you. I was like, oh my gosh, your post went viral. Like, people are tagging me in it. So for those that don't know, Jess, her pages are Sweet Gwendolyn, but she also wrote the viral post upgraded to 47.
Yeah, that's actually when I reached out to you because I was like, what do I do? I'd never even had any sort of social media that was public, and I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. Just all these people commenting, messaging me. So I was like, Taylor will know how to handle this, and you totally helped me like get through that.
And then it just like you hit it off with a bang, like your first like public post, and it was crazy. So for those of you who, in the off chance you guys haven't read it, I have it pulled up right here, and I want to read it to you guys because it's so cute, it's so funny, and it just perfectly describes like a fun little way of having a Down syndrome diagnosis. So here it is. I have it pulled up on themighty.com, but when I Googled it, there was pages and pages of people sharing this viral post, and then like maybe an article on you guys.
Yeah.
So cool. I love that. So it's up right here on the Mighty, and it says, when I placed my order, I said, regular amounts of chromosomes, please. That's what everyone else got and what I wanted too. They called me shortly after my order was in production and said, great news. We went ahead and upgraded you to extra chromosomes for free. You'll receive the extra chromosomes with your completed order in 9 months. What? I was mad. All the other orders I had seen displayed via perfect Instagram posts did not have extra chromosomes. Well, I decided that receiving my order with extra chromosomes was better than not receiving an order at all. So I settled in to wait for this surprise upgrade to arrive. I have now had my order for 2 months and am writing this review to let others know the upgrade to extra chromosomes is amazing. If offered, definitely take it. I posted some photos below of the finished product, and you can see the extra chromosome is worth it. It's extra cute, extra special, and extraordinary. So much extra joy. Would purchase again for sure. And then let me just flip my camera. This is the picture. I think this was the one with the post,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that is.
So this is the picture she included with the viral upgraded to 47 post. I love that picture. And I love this, and I especially love the part about, because knowing you guys' story, which I want to ask you about a little bit more, you included getting the extra upgrade was better than not getting an order at all, because you guys struggled with infertility, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
How did you kind of come up with this concept of this upgraded to 47? Like, what made you write this post?
Honestly, when I had Gwen, I would nurse her at night, and just as I was nursing in the middle of the night, I just would have all this inspiration come to my head. I would just think of things, and I would just write them down in a little notepad that I have, and I just kind of thought it just all of a sudden came to my mind, and I just remember reading it over and over. Though after like I had nursed her and put her back into bed, and I just kept rereading it. I was like, I really love this. And the next morning I read it to Josh, and I was like, do you like this? I was like, I for some reason, like, I'm like loving what I wrote. And
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. You know, he's like
It's
early in the morning.
Sure.
And I didn't really think much of it. And I mean, so honestly, it really and truly just came to, I don't know. I just kept thinking how it almost feels like you, especially with IVF, once you finally get pregnant, I mean, you're doing all these things. You're basically ordering a baby. You really are.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of how it felt.
And so for those who don't know your story, they might know the upgraded 47. Would you mind sharing your diagnosis story, like how you came to find out Gwen would have Down syndrome? Because you got a prenatal diagnosis, correct?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean, just like a lot of people, when I was 11 weeks pregnant, we did the blood test, the NIPT blood test, and I found out, I was just sitting in my office at work, and my doctor called me. She thought that they were going to email me the results, and she was so worried that I was going to click on my email right then and read it, and so she just blurted out. She's like, "Did you read it? Your baby has trisomy 21." And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I didn't have a chance to like be in a private place. I was just, you know, and so, yeah, I just was bawling, you know, it just seemed like the end of the world. It really, I had no idea. I'd never even we didn't have our embryos tested. You can have embryos tested when you do IVF, but we didn't do that. And honestly, when they offered me the blood test, it was more just, they were, you know, cause I was 37. I was 37 at the time, and they were like, you know, you're advanced maternal age. So they said I needed to do the blood test. And I just thought, oh, cool, I can find out the gender. That's the only reason I wanted to do it. I was like, there's no problem.
Most people think, honestly.
Yeah.
You don't go ahead thinking like, okay, let's do it just in case. You think, you know, you never prepare, I guess, for it until it happens.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, we did not. And so I mean, I truly was shocked. I was just like, there was no way. And yeah, I went home, told Josh, we cried and cried and cried, and then we like literally felt like someone had died, actually, because you know, the baby that we thought we were going to have, we felt like that baby had died for the moment. And we were just so depressed for the few days right after the diagnosis. And then after that, my husband and I were like, you know what, let's just like figure this out. Let's educate ourselves, and let's get back to the happy place that we were at before. Because when you're older and you use IVF to get pregnant, I really didn't think I didn't know for sure if I would be a mom. You have no clue. You don't know. There's no guarantees. And so we had been on cloud 9. Honestly, I had taken so many pregnancy tests, like it was unreal. And so it was really hard to go from like the highest high, like, cause I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I am actually pregnant, to then just being like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what is going on. I don't know what's in my belly. I don't know how to make sense of it. And
I think that's the hardest thing when you find out prenatally is you don't know what your baby's going to look like, personality traits. You know one thing, like that your baby's going to have Down syndrome. And so it's hard to picture anything but that diagnosis, because that's the only thing you know at that time about your baby. Yeah.
It's true. And I didn't really have any friends online. I didn't know anyone on social media that had a connection to Down syndrome.
Right.
you know, and so that's honestly what really one of the things that changed everything was just getting online and like most people do now and seeing like, what does a child with Down syndrome look like?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that is one of the first things I Googled because I'd only remembered meeting adults with Down syndrome. And I thought, what does that baby even look like that has Down syndrome? I can't even picture it in my head.
Yeah.
And so,
right.
yeah, it's funny, but it's such an amazing resource that we get to have now.
Yeah.
So this episode, we really wanted to focus on our heart warriors, defects. And so as you guys may or may not know, Trig just had surgery 7 months ago. We're kind of awaiting a similar situation to you, and I'll ask you about your story, but kind of waiting for news of yours is a lot more like rushed. It's going to happen sooner than later, but with Treg we're kind of like, okay, could it be now or in 3 years? We don't really know. So we did find out that Treg, just to give you guys background on Treg's heart history, we did find out that Treg would have a heart defect in utero, and they actually thought it was much more severe when I was pregnant with him than when he was born. We were basically told a week before I gave birth to Treg, that he does not have 4 chambers. They are all open to one another, and he is a cohort of the aorta. So with all this going on, he will need immediate surgery. You're going to give birth and basically might have to take him into surgery or let him grow for 2 weeks. You won't be able to touch him, and we're going to take him into surgery. That's what they were really essentially preparing Jordan and I for. So I know that you guys had surgery at Primary Children's. That's where we had Treg at the U, and that's where they were planning to do his surgery actually. So yeah. Hospital.
Yeah, we had Gwen at the U too.
Yeah. So when we had Trey, and I'm sure your situation was similar, we had him in the OR so they could, well, we had an emergency C-section, but it was planned to do in the OR so they could hand him through the window to the NICU so that they could assess his heart. And he went into heart failure during labor. So they thought, okay, definitely he's going to need immediate surgery. And it was just an amazing surprise for us when not only did Trey get out of the NICU without a surgery, and everyone was very surprised. After a week, his cohort healed on its own. Wow. So a lot of amazing things happened with Treg's heart, and we were able to push off his surgery till he just barely had it once he was 2. So once he was 2, he had his surgery. We're kind of awaiting another one, but for us, that was kind of best case scenario. So when did you find out about Gwen's heart defect?
Well, ours was actually opposite. So, I mean, when I was pregnant, they, at the 20-week ultrasound, they could tell that she had a heart defect and that it was the complete ABSD canal defect where she just has the 2 chambers. Right. So less severe than Treg's, at the outset. And they actually had me go to like a fetal imaging conference that my doctor had in Park City, where they were like teaching people how to like scan and identify a heart issue in a baby.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And because like her heart defect was just, they called it a textbook. They're like, they would like exclaim over it. The doctors, when they were doing the imaging conference, they were like, oh, this is beautiful. This is a textbook ABSD canal defect. And I'm just laying there like, should I be happy about that? I feel really weird right now, but it made me think that it was like not weird. There would be no complications. Just, it's very clear cut, simple.
They've experienced a lot then.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So it's something they had seen a lot. They knew how to fix it. There was not going to be an issue. And honestly, when she was born, she didn't even need oxygen. Like she was
That's amazing. Fine. Especially for even a typical child with Down syndrome, no heart defect sometimes needs oxygen still. So that's amazing.
Right. Yeah. She didn't, I mean, up until surgery, like you could not even tell that she needed it. It was really crazy. I mean, she didn't like, a lot of people told me their child really suffered from the day they were born until heart surgery. And then all of a sudden after surgery, they were like a different baby. But ours was reversed. Like she didn't struggle. She wasn't gaining weight when she was born, but she was, she was very, very tiny, but she was never like on oxygen, her skin was never mottled. She wasn't sweating. She didn't have she didn't look like she was struggling. When we finally did the surgery, it was kind of just because the doctors were like, well, they respond the best and recover the best if you do it between 4 and 6 months of age. So we were just like, okay, yeah, we just got to do it. But we couldn't understand why. We were like, it's so weird that we're taking her to do this major surgery when she's fine. You know,
Yeah.
But then anyways, the opposite happened. We did surgery, and then she just had major complications, and she was worse after surgery than before.
And I was going to ask you, did you know, like, I guess during surgery, the problems that were happening, did they send you with Trey? They sent us like kind of text updates, like,
Yeah.
did you kind of know, like, okay, something weird is happening, or this isn't that it would go?
We did. I mean, okay, so going into this, like, when I told people that Gwen had a heart defect, so I'm going to kind of segue out of this just for 1 second. Everybody was like, oh, she'll be fine. Like, the doctors these days, there's so many kids that have surgery. You know, you just hear everyone. I almost felt like, in a way, people were just kind of like dismissing it. Like, it's fine. I think they're just trying to make us feel better. Did you feel that way?
Oh, completely. And I thought, okay, this is day 4 or 5. Everyone said at this point, Trey is going to bounce back. He'll be fine. But, oh gosh, things are worse than before. So yeah, I totally agree. And I felt almost kind of silly for worrying, like, oh, my kid's going to have heart surgery. But everyone says he'll be just fine. But yeah.
Right. So I did that too. I believed it. I was like, yeah, you know what? Honestly, I trust all these people that have come before us. Like, it's going to be fine. And then the day of the surgery, they had her back there, and they did call us. They didn't send us texts, but they would call at this little desk, and they would just have us go up and you know, take calls from the staff that was in the OR with her. And it just, like, they would say, okay, we'll call you in like 2 hours. And then it would be like 3 hours before we'd get a call. And then they would say, well, we had to keep her on bypass a little bit longer than we thought, so it's going to be a couple more hours. And then it would be like 3 more hours. Her surgery the first time, it took like 6 hours. I mean, she was there maybe even a little bit longer. She was there all day. And so we already were kind of like a little bit worried, you know?
You're sitting there watching families come and go, and they're came and they're already out the door. Yeah, totally. Yeah. That sounds it's hard. It's hard to watch families like celebrate, like clapping in the waiting room. Yay, it went so good. You're still like, okay, what's going on? What moment did Gwen's surgical team come together and say, okay, like, we're still struggling. She's not at the point where we thought she would be. It's time to discuss emergency second surgery, basically.
Well, after the first one, I mean, honestly, even though her first surgery took a long time, the doctor came back in and he's like, yeah, it was a little bit harder than I thought, but he's like, but everything is great, you know. And honestly, it wrapped up perfectly. We were like, awesome, we're good to go. You know, she was going back into recovery, and she seemed to be like on the same path of recovery that most babies are. She just, you know, she was intubated and in the CICU, and it was okay. But then about a couple days into her recovery, she had to be on a pacemaker. Her heart wasn't pacing yet, and that's normal.
External pacemaker.
External, yeah. Right. So she was on the external pacemaker, and one night we started noticing that her heart rate would go from just like a regular rate to like, it would go from like 120 to 180, just like that. Like, snap of a finger, and all of a sudden her heart was just racing, and she's just laying there like sedated, like, you know. So no one understood what was going on, and this happened like for an entire, like, all night long. And it wasn't until the morning that all of a sudden somebody figured out her pacemaker was malfunctioning. And
oh no, that's terrible.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And so as a result of that, so they got it fixed. They switched out the pacemaker, and then she was okay. But then what happened was, because the force on her heart.
We should clarify for those that aren't heart mamas. These pacemakers, they're connected internally, but they leave these. They're kind of wires, I guess.
Yeah.
Out on the off chance that your baby won't be able to regulate their own heartbeat. So it's like, you know, when people have heart surgery and they need a pacemaker, well, this is external, and the idea is that the person having the surgery will always need them, but they're there just in case. So they keep the rhythm, but it's not actually internal. They can adjust it manually from the outside.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and the hope was that you know, eventually her heart would start pacing itself. It's just after surgery, it's trying to figure it out, you know? And so, but they realized that because of that pressure, because her heart was increased so quickly, like with, you know, and it wasn't doing it on its own. It basically, they had just in her heart with the AVSD canal defect, they basically had to create a valve because she did not have one of her heart valves. So they like had to construct it out of her tissue. And, you know, a baby's heart is so delicate. It was like, it's like tissue paper. And so to have like her heart all of a sudden, like
a baby's heart as Jello.
Jello, yeah.
Texture of Jello. And I just can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and then
I did not know that actually, that she needed was it just like an artificial valve or?
Yeah, pretty much. They created with like her tissue. They somehow use the tissue in her heart and then some like mesh and some mesh. Yeah. And they can create a little valve. And so they did that, but it was just so delicate that pressure it burst it. Like it just, they found out like within about 3 or 4 days, she was doing so poorly after that first surgery that they realized. They did another echo on her heart and they were like, her valve that we created is no longer there basically.
Wow.
And she was just in so much pain that she could only lay there like on her hospital bed and like, and at least her eyes would follow you. Oh, am I there now?
No, you're fine. I got an Amber Alert on my phone, so it paused everything. Yeah, super sad.
Well, I was just saying that she was in so much pain that she couldn't even move her eyes. Like she would just lay there and could only stare at one spot in the ceiling, and you could just see her just like, it was so sad. And she was terrible. I mean, the doctors, they would just be like, this girl, she's not okay. Like, so within 5 days, they're like, we've got to go back in because she's just like doing worse. So 5 days after this first surgery, they did the second one. And that one, you know, at first we thought, hey, this is going to be good. This is all she needed. We're going to be out in no time. And they sent us home within about 7 days after that. And we got home and within 4 days, her heart, we could see she just was breathing really heavily. She would just lay on her mat and she was lethargic. And she just did not seem right. And we ended up having to rush her back to primary.
I saw her videos before. Gwen is super like loud, active.
Yeah.
She
was always like,
girl. Yeah.
Pushing herself up, you know, and yeah, she wasn't doing any of that. Obviously she just had 2 heart surgeries, but so we ended up having to take her back to the hospital in the middle of the night. And they were like, okay, yeah, she's not doing well. Something's wrong. Let's readmit her. And they just started watching her and adjusted her medication. And then we were there about another week, and then they were like, okay, I think now you can go home. So we went home, and then we were home 2 hours, and we had to call an ambulance because she pooped. Like she had a really, really bad poo, and her heart was so weak that she passed out. Like she went lifeless. Her lips were blue. She was making this really weird retching noise that I guess happens when your heart's not, it was awful. It was so terrible. And so after that, we went back to the hospital, and we were there for a total of 2 months. While they were just like
from the first to going back after she passed
out.
Yeah,
so during this whole period we were in the hospital for 60 days, and we got to go home for just 4 days between the whole thing.
So where does Gwen stand now with her heart, and what is like her doctor's plans moving forward?
Well, so they were actually getting ready to fly her to Boston. They had everything ready to go. It was going to happen. Because for a third surgery, because they just felt her valves at this point, after both surgeries, they had kept replacing her valves, and they just felt that doing it one more, they couldn't do it a third time in Salt Lake. They felt like they were going to need to take us to Boston because they have a really good valve surgeon there.
Right.
And but then all of a sudden they kind of adjusted her medications, and then she just started like stabilizing. And so they just kept watching her and really that was for the best, because so a lot of babies have heart surgery even like when they're 4 days old, or you know, and all these different things. But when it's your valve that is the problem, that's the hardest thing to fix. There are hardly any good options. And they basically were just we didn't know that either, but if she had holes in her heart or anything else, it wouldn't have been such a grim prognosis. But for a small baby, they don't have good, like she's not really a transplant candidate. they don't have good valves. Like they said, anything we put in her, it's probably not going to work. And they were like, you know, a lot of the babies don't make it with this, or they have major complications. And it was really, really awful. I mean, I don't know if you know, obviously, you know, Indy, you know, Tara Bell,
right?
her, you know, our friend Indy, and she's going through cancer.
And
she was in the hospital
as well, right?
Yeah, she is, and she was in the hospital the same time as me. And it was just so crazy to see. Like, I remember one time we had just gotten this awful news, and she would be about Gwen, just this information. Doctors basically saying they didn't know, they didn't really know what was going to happen with her, and it was really awful. And I remember seeing Tara happen to walk by at that same moment, and she had the same look on her face that I had. And in talking to her, and then also just I was reading one of her Instagram stories. I saw that she had the same situation where she'd gotten just terrible news that day. And I remember I talked to her and I just said, you know, it was really comforting in a weird way to see it was just like the same emotion reflected on her face for different things, you know. But so it was weirdly comforting, I think, to have someone else going through that.
Oh, yeah, I understand that completely. Even though you wish neither of you were, you need someone almost to understand that same, I don't know, pain.
Yeah.
So we're gonna open. We only have a few minutes. We talk so much. I'm sorry, but to questions. If any of you guys have questions for her about Gwen, about advocating, about heart related, we're gonna open the floor to that. I haven't been reading any of the comments. I've been kind of just like zoned in. Sorry. So if you did leave a question before, just please leave it again. I'm kind of scrolling through, but I know I always miss quite a few. And then while we're waiting for questions, we have just a few little moments of news. Steffi, if you're on here, please leave the code. But guys, we have merch. I know you got yours. I was going to wear my red, but I was like, it's wet. Just got out of the washing machine. This is the one you have, right?
Yeah. Although I like both colors, so.
We just launched merch, Tulips merch, guys. Yay, so exciting. And we're offering, I think, a 10% discount. It launches tonight, right after this live. So you can just hop off and go to our page that's linked. Oh, Tulips Live 10. That'll get you 10% off. And let's see. What else? Was there one more thing? Oh, and you still have...
Here's a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Cassie. Hi, Cassie.
Would you recommend a complete VSD at Primary Children's Hospital, for those of you that don't know, is a children's hospital in Salt Lake City, and it's actually the nearest children's hospital for many surrounding states. It was the closest for us all the way in Idaho Falls, which is a 3-hour drive. But parents came from Montana, so it's a pretty well-known hospital.
Well, I was going to say, yes, I would definitely recommend going there. And yes, there are hot surgeons there, Stephanie, to be clear.
Someone say that. Steffi, yeah.
But I would recommend it because they do an amazing job. But what they told me, they said that across the country, children's hospitals specialize in different parts of heart surgery. So if they might refer you to tons of different hospitals depending what the issue is. Most of them can just be done at primaries, but if they can't, like for valves, that one specific weird thing, you go to Boston. Like there's no other hospital that would do better than Boston, but you would be great at primaries for anything. I would always start there, especially if it's close and easy for you to get to. And then they would refer you if they feel like they can't handle it, successfully.
We got another one. What was the hardest part of recovery, but for you?
For me?
Yes.
Oh, well, I think just the emotional trauma of it, to be honest, like the day that we had to call, I feel like I'll get emotional, but when we had to call 911 on Gwen, it was just like the worst moment of my life. I just can't even like I felt like she was going, and just like my husband, I kind of kept, what was that?
And it's such a panic of like, is she going to make it in time? Are we, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the hardest part was we really had, and I talked to a couple other moms that went through this, we really had to go through the steps of grieving as if we could lose her, because we really could have. And just to have to kind of confront those emotions, it does make you love your child and treasure them in a way that I really couldn't even imagine. But it's also just, it's so traumatizing to go through. I mean, I just, looking back on that time, I was so stressed out that I couldn't even, I didn't even have my own car at the hospital for the first month, because I I didn't feel that I could even go and drive myself. I don't know. So I literally just was not, I thought I was doing great, but I was still kind of just barely holding on. I realized later. I think that was the hardest part, just kind of getting back to normal life and trying to let those scared feelings go, you know?
But. And then, the same person said Cassie, he needs a valve construction too. So that's kind of similar to.
Yeah, well then it will depend on like his size. Gwen was so tiny that they said, you know, if it's a larger baby, they might be able to do it. But I would go there. They're so awesome. Like the heart surgeons there, they are not at all prideful. They'll say, we'll look at this child. If we can't do it, we'll send it to Boston. They'll look at it. And then whoever feels like they can do it, we'll take your kid.
And then that kind of answers this question, but someone said, do you still think Gwen's doctor is as wonderful as you once did?
Yes, I absolutely do. He is fantastic. Like if you've seen Gwen's heart surgery scar, like it's probably the best one I've ever seen of any kid. I'm not kidding. It's beautiful. And it wasn't anything he did. It was things that happened after her surgery, like her pacemaker going crazy. And then after the second surgery, I'm going to be honest, she had respiratory therapy and they were like hitting her chest so hard. I believe that. And then her constipation where she was pushing so hard. It was these external things that happened. Our surgeon did a beautiful job. And when I would talk to him, he'd be like, it was perfect after surgery. And then these things would happen where we knew that it happened in those moments. It was not the surgeon's fault.
Outside circumstances.
Yeah, right.
That makes sense. All right. It's already 10:03. I think we got all the questions. So proud of you.
Aww.
Up to you guys so much.
Oh, hi, Allie.
I love that. And then, yeah, we've got some really nice comments. You guys are so sweet.
I know.
We love having you on as a guest. We're going to save this live. So if you guys only got to watch part of it, we save them and then we put them on YouTube later. So you guys will be able to watch them. But it'll stay up for 24 hours here as well. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm so glad we kind of got to like talk for real.
I know. It's so fun to see you.
We talk all the time, but like almost face to face. One day we'll meet for real. Next time me and Treg are in Salt Lake, which is pretty often. So hopefully next time we're there.
Please. That would be so fun.
Love Treg and Gwen. I know. Wouldn't they be so cute together, guys? A little bit too. Oh, I can't even imagine. All that personality can't fit into one picture.
Aw, thank you, Jenna. Hi, Kelsey.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I loved it.
Yes, I loved it too.
We love all of you guys.